Hello everyone, we are coming on live. We like to come on for just a few minutes early, just to make sure the people can get on. Just saying greetings everyone. I hope that you all had an amazing day. Happy Tuesday. For all of you all out there, we are going live every day. So y'all stay tuned, stay connected, share this video. Know that if you come on late and you've missed something, we hope that you go back and start over. But definitely so excited about being on live. I like to give it a few minutes just for folks to get on so that we can go ahead and get started at 8 o'clock, okay? So I hope everybody's having an amazing day. Okay. Okay. Check the time. Okay, it's 7:59. So we're going to give it about 1 minute more, and then we're going to go ahead and get started, okay? I know folks will join in, so we're going to go ahead and get started so we can be done, hopefully within 30 minutes, okay? So you can have the rest of your night to do what you need to do. Hey, Tasha, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. So is it 8 o'clock? Not quite yet. I'm rushing it, huh? I hope everybody's had a blessed day today. Tonight, we're going to continue the conversation on abandonment. We're going to just kind of go through, like we did last night, through some of the questions, and we want you to chime in if you feel like chiming in. If not, that's okay. Just enjoy this segment. We're talking about abandonment. Abandonment. We started off the conversation asking the question, what is abandonment, right? We asked the question, what is abandonment? And a lot of people had different things to say. But one of the things that's so important about abandonment is that abandonment can be physical or emotional, okay? It's not just what physically happens to us. It's an emotional component to that as well. The physical component of abandonment can be, it can mean to be left completely, to be forsaken or deserted. There are a lot of people who feel like people in relationships, it often happens, where people who are in relationships and the relationship may end abruptly, they may feel like they have been forsaken. They may feel like they have been deserted and just left alone to dry. And so that's definitely a physical component of abandonment. The emotional component of abandonment means a state of feeling undesirable, left behind, insecure and discarded. So it's more of a feeling base. Hey, Nikki. Hey, yeah, I hope it will be a good live. But hey, y'all, keep it going. Share the video. Let's talk. There's a physical, we were just talking about, there's a physical and an emotional component to abandonment. And so a lot of the times when we're going through abandonment, there's a mixture of the two. So not only do you feel physically deserted or physically empty, you may also feel emotionally depleted and may feel like, that a person may have left you high and dry physically and emotionally. So definitely recognizing the aspects. And we like to, I don't know all the answers. We like to talk about abandonment, if you will, because it's teaching us what it is that we may have experienced at some point in our life and we didn't even realize that we experienced it. So we're going to move forward. The next question that we asked on today was, we didn't ask this, but I wanted to ask this rather. What is fear of abandonment? Because oftentimes there are a lot of people who have not yet experienced abandonment or may not have experienced abandonment in their childhood, but as they are living their lives, they may feel something may have happened that may have caused them to feel like at some point they're going to be abandoned. And this is an interesting thought, because when you are experiencing fear of abandonment, that's a very heavy place to be, especially if you're in relationship with someone. Because instead of like being secure with the person that you with, you begin to get too clingy. You begin to get very, very needy with that person, and they begin to pull away. But you are pulling on closer to them because you don't want to let them go. So definitely recognizing that the fear of abandonment can cause so many different things. What is the fear of abandonment in a definition? It is a belief. It is a belief, right? It's a belief that one will personally be rejected, replaced, or thrown away. It is a belief, which means that it does not necessarily have to be true. Some of the things that we believe are not true. Some of the things, that's what we talk about automatic thoughts. What is it that you allow into your mind? Whatever you allow in your mind that you don't deal with goes into your heart. That becomes a belief. And it doesn't mean that it's true. And so oftentimes when you're dealing with fear of abandonment, you're dealing with someone who has a fear of something that may not have even happened to them. And so oftentimes the fear of abandonment stems from a loss. And whatever that loss is, it doesn't have to mean that mama left a long time ago, but whatever that loss was, it stemmed from that. Like, oh my God, I lost this thing. Now I have to cling on to what I have so I don't lose that. And we lose so many relationships clinging on to people that we're afraid of losing. And oftentimes we put ourselves in a hard place because that partner is like, I can't have this around me like that. You can't be like that around me. And it becomes very difficult to manage that relationship because you have one person that's like, I don't want to lose you. And then the other person's like, I'm not going anywhere. But you're clinging on to them so much that it becomes an unhealthy dynamic, right? And so recognizing that the fear of abandonment has a lot of power as well. You don't have to go through an actual abandonment moment to feel the fear of abandonment. Y'all talk to me on tonight. Y'all talk to me. Usually along with the fear of abandonment comes a heavy sense of dependency on another individual. Have you ever been in a relationship with someone? Have you ever been in a relationship with someone and you're pulling on to them, right? You're pulling on to them, man. You're pulling on to them and they're like, wait, I'm not going anywhere. But because of your own insecurity, you're pulling on to them and it becomes unhealthy. It becomes harmful because they're like, I need some space. And you're like, I need you closer. And that last night, we talked about that last night, codependency, how we grab onto something to give us comfort when the fact of the matter is the comfort that we need is within ourselves. Y'all gonna recognize that every time we talk about something, we're gonna go deep and we're gonna go back to ourselves, because we can talk about all the stuff that other people did to us, but the reality of it is that we have control now over what we allow to keep being an issue in our lives. We have control over that, okay? So I want to talk about that. What is codependency? Codependency is saying, wait a minute, I want to hold on to this. This is mine. I can't lose you. You're mine. And oftentimes our fear leads us to want to hold on to others and not let go. Our fear keeps us holding on to people. So our relationships are no longer healthy. They become very toxic very quickly because of our fear. We have to deal with that fear. What is that fear deriving from? Where is it coming from? And so this is the work that you have to do on your own, because your partner is not going to be able to make you secure. When you are insecure, when you have dealt with abandonment, when you have dealt with so many different things that have been messed up in your life, when you have dealt with people who have just walked out on you, your partner is not going to be able to give you the security that you need. The security that you need is going to come from within, healing within. Absolutely, Dolores. It's like possession. Eleanor says, I feel that oftentimes when a person is abandoned as a child, they become adults. Yes, as an adult, they become afraid of being abandoned again. So it's this transition of trauma. It's like, okay, now I've dealt with being abandoned. Now I don't want to be abandoned. So I'm going to try to do whatever in my power to keep that person close. Okay. So Teresina says, correct. I used to have a problem with being clingy. And I had to learn that someone needing space didn't mean it. Right. Someone needing space does not mean that they're rejecting you. It doesn't mean that. Right. But in our minds, I've been a clingy person too. Oh, you're not going nowhere. Right. You're not. I've clung on to people and held on to them. And it's been unhealthy. Why? Because they end up leaving anyway. Absolutely, young T Hall. I definitely appreciate you for sharing that. Because it's definitely real. Feeling abandoned, we talked about what is the age? Does it always have to happen in childhood? Maybe not. It doesn't. And when we talk about the emotional component of abandonment, there are people who are in relationships right now who feel undesirable. They don't feel loved. They don't feel listened to. They don't feel well communicated with. They don't feel any of that. They feel alone. They feel abandoned. They feel neglected. And they're in relationships or marriages right now. So abandonment doesn't have to mean, oh yeah, this is what I went through in my childhood. This can mean this is what I'm going through right now because it's of a relationship. And so recognizing that our clingy behavior, I know we all have done it in some aspect. We have all been clingy in some aspect with someone else because we were afraid of losing them. And it becomes very toxic and very unhealthy. Okay. So we move on and to talk about when you lose something that is so important to you, you hold on tightly to it because you don't want to hurt. Right. You don't want to hurt. And what happens in the end, Dolores, most of the time we end up hurting. We hold on to it so much that we end up hurting ourselves, trying to hold on to something that sometimes is not meant for us. Absolutely, Eleanor. Death can be viewed as abandonment? Absolutely. We're going to talk about that right now. In what ways can a person be abandoned? Y'all, we have lighting issues. I apologize. By the time I get off the train during the day, I don't have time to get home. So I do my live from my car because I want to make sure that we're on this live every day. And so we're going to continue the conversation. I'm going to turn on these lights. I'll move the phone if I need to. If you have trouble seeing me or hearing me, just let me know, okay? All right. So in what ways can a person be abandoned? A person can be abandoned in a relationship or marriage. A person can be abandoned. They can feel isolated, ignored, or unwanted in a relationship. There could have been a devastating moment that happened from a childhood. There could have been a traumatic experience from a childhood. The rejection of a parent. And that's so important because sometimes the parent don't even have to leave. There could just be a rejection, an emotional emptiness from the parent that can cause a feeling of abandonment. A child that's physically left by a parent. Especially fathers. We don't realize how important having a father in our lives are. But having a father is so very important, especially for daughters and our sons, because the role model is necessary, right? And so oftentimes you have a single mother raising children and she's having to work 3 and 4 jobs to make ends meet, and she's not able to be emotionally available to her children. And what happens to that? The children sometimes grow up feeling rejected or neglected. It happens so often. There can be something as simple as a loss of a pet. That can lead to abandonment. The lack of attention or communication. A child needing parents who are emotionally unavailable. Death. Dolores, you just said, I lost my mom. I lost my mom when I was a child. I was devastated. That's painful. And you know, there's so many people who have their mothers that are alive and their mothers are still not present in their children's lives. Their fathers are still not present. It's devastating to experience the death, and it's devastating to experience the loss in just the physical quality, even without death present. Thank you all for sharing. I'm going to get right to that comment. Being older. Here's one that's unique. Being an older parent and you feel neglected by your children. Now I'm older. I may be disabled. I may have an illness. Something may be going on. And now I feel neglected by my children. That is an abandonment. The loss of a job can lead to abandonment. Can you imagine? Some of us, our jobs and our livelihoods are a part of our identities. And when we lose that, we're losing a part of who we are. We can feel abandoned. Losing a career or identity. Let's think about identity, right? How our identities show up. How do we show up? Now, imagine not being able to express your identity. How abandoned you may feel by others when you are not able to express yourself to the greatest capacity. Having an illness, being diagnosed with an illness, feeling like no one understands, can lead to a feeling of abandonment. No one understands me. You don't understand. You don't understand the depression. You don't understand. You don't know how many times people have come into my inbox when I have conversations and they say, you don't understand me. You're right. I don't understand you. But guess what? I know that the pain that you're feeling can be fixed. That's one thing I do understand. And a lot of us feel so abandoned. We feel like no one ever understands us. That's why we isolate ourselves. When we go through these feelings of abandonment, we isolate ourselves. We pull ourselves in a box. We put ourselves in a place where we feel like no one can even get to us because we already fear that they don't understand us. We're already afraid of the rejection and the abandonment from them. The fear of dying. The fear of dying can lead to a sense of abandonment. I'm afraid that I'm going to die. I've been diagnosed with this terminal illness and I feel like I'm going to die. And no one understands the pain that I go through. No one understands the struggles that I have to have every day. Now I feel alone and abandoned. Think about all of these things, y'all. And you can add to this list. I'm going to go back to some of these, I done lost my train of thought in my words, to some of these comments to just talk about what folks are thinking. Okay. Eleanor says, right, parents, they don't have to necessarily leave, yet their children are neglected and feel abandoned. Absolutely. It happens to the best of folks all the time. Jay says, I talk to my dad every morning and throughout the day until he passed. So I can imagine, Jay, that when your father passed, there was a sense of abandonment. There was a sense of question. I lost an aunt at a very, very young age. She was 38 years old. I talked to her every single day. And when she died, I felt abandoned. I felt angry. I felt bitter. I felt confused. Why? Because I felt alone. And this was the only person that I felt that understood me from where I was at that moment. And when I had to go through that death, it was hard. And I questioned so many things. So death can definitely bring a different perspective and add to that sense of abandonment. Dolores, my father raised me and I feel abandoned again now that he's gone. We have to think about how these things impact us. And I appreciate all of y'all for sharing. These things are heavy. They happen. And what often happens with us is we'll hold them in and we won't talk about them because it's like, oh, that seems cheesy. That seems crazy. But we'll seem like, you know what? It's all right. I'll get through this. I'll grieve through this. I'll grieve this out. But some of y'all are expressing yourselves right now, and it's still just as painful as when it first happened. Very painful. Dominique, I think my mother feels like that. Thanks. And definitely it brings a perspective. And I don't know if you mean like she's older and she feels like she's been abandoned by her children. But definitely it brings a different perspective because we always think that, oh, abandonment has to happen in childhood. It has to happen in relationships. But no, it can happen with older adults, with parents who feel like my children don't even check on me. When the parent goes into a nursing home, or when the parent goes into a facility, or when the parent is living in supportive housing and they don't have a call, a visit, or anything from their children, that can lead to a sense of abandonment. Nikki says, yes, my father abandoned me and started a new family, like I said, before he doesn't talk to me. So I cling on to my girlfriend. I tell her all the time I'm scared of losing her. Every time she states about me breaking up, I freak out. That's why I'm making my own closure with my father. Absolutely. Absolutely, Nikki. It starts with bringing closure. It starts with bringing closure to what has caused harm in your life. That is how you heal. I'm going to move this camera because the lighting is starting to act funny. But that is how we move on. That is how we move on from being abandoned and neglected or feeling abandoned, is by dealing with the very thing that hurt us. God, the death of my aunt hurt me. Now I need you to help me heal. Show me what I need to do. They're grief counselors for a reason. And it doesn't mean this may have happened 20 years ago. But guess what? If you're still grieving the loss of a loved one, it's okay. Acknowledging that you're still grieving the loss and learning how to heal internally, inside out, because we know how to look healed on the outside. We know how to smile and fake the funk, but we're hurting on the inside. And it's causing us to sometimes terminate other relationships because of our clingy behavior. It's causing us to have anxiety. It's causing us to have depression, to go into suicidal ideations. It's causing us to feel all of these things because of where we are. Tasha says, yes, that's how I feel. No one understands what I go through with my hearing loss. I feel alone. I feel alone. And that's often we talk about disabilities or whatever. And we're going to do a segment on disability because I think that a lot of people don't understand. Right. And it can be isolating, Tasha, when you feel like you have a disability that other people don't understand, or they may get frustrated with you. They may be like, you know what? I don't understand what that is. Let me just go away. And you can feel isolated and alone. But just know that you are not alone. You're not alone. And that is the biggest truth that you could ever tell yourself. I am not alone in this. Do y'all know what is the biggest support for folks who are abandoned? Did you all know what the biggest support is? I'm going to tell you. Group support is the biggest for folks who deal with abandonment. To know that I'm not the only one going through this is an aid in helping people to heal. This is why we have these segments. Why? Because when you talk, when you talk and when you share, when all y'all get on here and support one another, you all leave this page feeling much better than what you started. And that is the key. How to heal. Isolation is not good. Absolutely, Dolores. This may seem off, but when a person suffers from PTSD, that can lead to abandonment. Why? Because a loss of absolutely, it can lead to a loss of memory. It can lead to a whole lot of things. The trauma that a person has endured, and even before they're diagnosed with PTSD, that can lead to feelings of abandonment. You don't understand what I'm going through. You don't understand mental illness, y'all. Mental illness can lead to abandonment. It can lead to feeling alone. I mean, let's be honest. In the people of color community, in the community of African Americans, Latinos, folks who are people of color, it is already a stigma about having a mental disability. So imagine being diagnosed with a disability, a mental disability or a physical disability, and you feel isolated and you feel alone. You feel abandoned by loved ones. You feel abandoned because you feel like now you're having to deal with stuff that other people did to you. That's an isolated and that's a hurtful experience. Thank you for sharing that, Eleanor. When you isolate yourself, you cause more damage. Absolutely. One of the best truths, and I'm going to say it again for those who may not have heard it. One of the greatest truths that you can tell yourself is that I am not alone. I am not alone. Because oftentimes when you go through your depression, when you go through the feelings of abandonment, when you go through different things, if we're not clinging on to folks for dear life, we're often isolating ourselves. Sometimes, and we're going to get into it in a minute, some of the impacts of abandonment can be dropping other relationships in our lives. And we're going to talk about that. I'm going to go into detail in just a moment, okay? The Lord says, my children are now older and have their own lives. I feel like I don't want to be in their lives too much. That can be painful. And that could be a healing moment for you, Dolores, and that could be a painful moment. Right? Because we like when I get older, I want to take care of my parents. I want to make sure that they're okay. And oftentimes, our children can grow and be great. We want them to grow and be great, but they can also forget, that I have a mom down the street that I need to check on. Absolutely, Nikki. Congratulations on the job. Amen. We're so very happy about your testimony. We believe God for your testimony. We're grateful that you are actually sharing. So definitely congratulations on that. Mental illness is real. Absolutely. This is my support group. I love all y'all. My mom never raised me. That's when I started to feel abandoned. Okay. And Young T Hall, we talk about this often. I appreciate you for every time that you come on this video, you are sharing. And so that is a sign that you are taking the steps into your own healing. But now I want to challenge you. You can answer this or you don't have to. But if you want to answer it, then I definitely challenge you. What do you do with that now? Right? Because we recognize that my mom didn't fully raise me. I'm being transparent, y'all. My mother was there and then she wasn't. Honestly. And so recognizing that as a young child, that can be devastating. But it wasn't until I took power over it. I'm not going to allow the fact that my mother may not have been there my whole life. I'm not going to allow that to kill me anymore. I now want to heal from this, and I now want to move on from this. I now want to transition my life and be successful. If she never sees me as successful, I'll be successful for myself. I want to ask you, Young T Ho, what are you doing now that you recognize the reasons why you feel abandoned? What are you doing now to prevent that from happening in your future? And it is taboo to talk about mental illness. It's already, when people say, when somebody says, have you ever talked to a counselor? People are like, I'm not crazy. People already get offensive, right? It's one of those things where people are very guarded when it comes to mental illness. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing, but we make it a bad thing. No, good health includes good mental health. That is so very important. Teresina, thank you for the support. To Nikki, I'm going to go ahead and read your comment anyway. You said, I'm so very sorry, Nikki, that you and some of the others experienced that with your father. In the same note, I salute you. Why salute you? Because people like you and my dad prove that with or without an individual, you can still make it and be just as successful without them. My dad's father abandoned him. He was an alcoholic. My dad never took us around him, so I never met him or his family, but I don't hold anything against my dad for that. My dad's strength in allowing his situation to make him become a great father makes me love him more. I encourage you as well. Allow that pain to strengthen you. Absolutely. That was probably one of the most powerful things that I've read in quite a while. Sometimes we think that our situations are so horrible in our lives, but it is a sign of clear strength that we can make it and we can survive. Listen, you are not a victim. I want to let y'all know today, you are not a victim of abandonment. You're not a victim of abuse. You're not a victim of all of these other tragic things that may have happened to you. You are a survivor. There's a difference. The victim, when we use victim, it's like, oh, this person has been abused. It's a pity party, and it's all of these negative things that people try to put on a victim. But when you are a survivor, you can stand with your chest out like, I survived this. If I made it through this, I can make it through anything else. And that is so very powerful. And I appreciate the power and the strength that you all show every day you all come on here. Why? Because it's so very important that people see that you're helping somebody else get through your story. And I appreciate you for sharing yourself, okay? And not counting it robbery to be vulnerable in this conversation. Thank you. Eleanor says, I've been working in mental health for 27 years. Yet, I can relate to most of the people I have worked with. Right. You can relate. And sometimes it's hard. It's hard to say that sometimes. I can relate to some of the folks I've met. You know what? Some of the greatest lessons I've learned is through counseling other people. That's actually helped me to grow as an individual. That's actually helped me to be a better person. Survival is the key. Surviving is so important. You are not just living. You're not just you're a survivor. You can now move forward in life knowing that if you conquered one thing, you can conquer another. And sometimes when you're in your situation, you don't necessarily see how to get out, or even if you're progressing. You sometimes don't see it because you're in it. But when I look at y'all, every single one of y'all on this page right now, every single one of y'all that's commenting, when I look at you, I see a pillar of strength, not just a picture of strength, but a pillar, which means that you're standing on solid ground and you're showing your strength like never before. It takes a lot to talk about stuff that's happened to you. It takes a lot. And so I appreciate you for being open and vulnerable and for sharing your space and sharing your heart with us so that we know that you are a survivor and that if you made it, we can make it too. Thank you. Nikki says, I always got through because mama always said, don't cry and kick yourself over things or people who won't cry over you or will not matter tomorrow. Because when I think I have it bad, it's someone out there who has it worse. And that may have worked for you, and I appreciate that. That's very true. What you're going through right now, somebody else could be going through much things worse. And that's great that you were able to pull through because of that. I want to also acknowledge the fact that that even though there's somebody going through things that's worse, it's still very important that you acknowledge this hurt me. This caused me some pain. Somebody hurt my feelings today at my job. And I didn't have a chance to tell them that they hurt my feelings. But they hurt my feelings today. And I had to take a moment and go in the office and say, you know what, God, this hurt me. And acknowledge the fact that my feelings were hurt and validate my own experience. Because oftentimes when we say, okay, don't cry over spilled milk, we often neglect our own feelings. And we end up not crying over spilled milk, but then we don't cry over anything else because we're so numb to the pain that we've inflicted on ourselves because we've chosen not to deal with ourselves, that it becomes more problematic than helpful. And so I want to share that on the other light of that as well, okay? Young T Hall, then my grandmother died. I really felt alone. Till this day, I still feel alone because she was my rock. It will be 17 years on July, and it still hurts. Thank you. Keep talking. Keep talking, T-Hawk. Keep talking. Why? Because as you keep talking, and as you keep dealing, and as this stuff keeps surfing up in your mind, and as it keeps coming up in your heart, and as it keeps coming out of your mouth, you're recognizing the stuff that's hurt you in the past. And it's painful to experience death. Death is real. And it's hard. We can go to the funeral and we can see the person laid out. And that's one thing. But to emotionally feel them no longer in our lives, that's hard. Especially when you relied on them so much for so many different things, including security, for strength, and all of these other things. And so I want to ask you a question, Young T-Hawk, because I like to challenge you a little bit. What are some of the things that your grandmother taught you? If I may ask. And if you want to respond, please respond. What are some of the things that your grandmother taught you, okay? Okay? And while I wait on that comment, I'm going to move forward and go to the next question that we talked about today. We talked about how might a person respond to feelings of abandonment? How does a person now respond to abandonment? Okay? And one of the answers, one of the ways that people can respond is through devastation. They may even start to end relationships abruptly with other people. Because of the abandonment, the hurt, and the loss, there's a trust level that's not there anymore. You have to understand the life of a person who feels abandoned. That's why I say to you, all of you all who feel like the greatest result is to cling on to someone else, they will never make you feel secure until you learn to trust yourself and you pull on and you begin to heal in yourself, because they will, even if they said, I'm here with you for the long run, in your mind, you're still afraid of that abandonment. You're still afraid that they're going to leave you one day. They're going to wake up and decide that they don't want to be with you anymore. So oftentimes when we're dealing with abandonment, and I've done this, y'all, I'm telling you, my cutoff game is real. I've dealt with abandonment and I've cut people off at the root. I've cut them off completely. Why? Because I would rather hurt myself than let them hurt me. And I know there's some people who will agree with that. You've cut people off when you felt like it was a threat of them. I'm sorry, I was a bug. Get on out here. When you felt like people were going to leave, when you feel like people are going to leave you, you go ahead and cut them off because it's easier. It's easier. And that's painful, right? We end up sabotaging ourselves because of our own abandonment. It's real out here. It's real. Y'all don't see, I knew you was going to laugh. See, I can't. Y'all, I don't like no bugs. Let me roll this window up. Because I've been in here fighting. Look, I'm transparent. I've been in here fighting these bugs, okay? Y'all think I was in the Matrix. Okay, moving forward. We become insecure. When we deal with abandonment, we become insecure. We become lost, unsatisfied, promiscuous. Some of us in our abandonment begin to look for love in the wrong places. And we become promiscuous. We start looking for people and we start moving in ways that would cause us to make poor decisions because of our own abandonment. Well, this person said they loved me, so I'm gonna go be with this person. Then I'm gonna be with this person because they feel good. And we start to have promiscuous lifestyles because of our abandonment. We lack in trust in others. That's big. That's a big one. We feel unworthy. We feel useless. Some of us become suicidal. Oh man, you know what? Life would be better if I just died. People will often say those things. We talked about yesterday addiction. We begin to lean on addictions to give us a satisfaction that we can't get within ourselves or other people can't give us. Y'all, hear these conversations that we're having overlap. Everything leads to something else. That's why we're having the conversations as we do, because it's so very important that we recognize the connection between all of the stuff that we experience in our life. And the core of the problem is trauma. Trauma that we refuse to talk about. Trauma that we refuse to deal with. Trauma that we refuse to heal from. And it becomes very difficult to process that. Some of the other responses to abandonment can be seeking love desperately. Seeking love desperately. I need love. So we find ourselves on websites. Y'all, it got so bad in a part of my life. I found I was meeting people on websites because I just needed someone. I felt like I just needed someone. That was a sign of an abandonment and a loss. And I needed to heal. So I was putting myself in harmful situations, meeting people when I wasn't trying to heal myself. Because I felt like the comfort of another person was better than being alone by myself. How many of y'all are afraid of being alone? That's the key right there to know whether or not you are healed or not. When you are afraid of being alone, that is a problem. And we're going to address that too. Risk-taking behaviors. I'm going to get back to y'all's comments. So I want y'all to know I'm not going to ignore y'all, okay? Anxiety. Decreased self-esteem, isolation, self-depreciation. This one right here got me. How many of us talk down on ourselves because of what mama and daddy said to us when we were kids? Oh, you know, you ain't gonna ever be nothing. You ain't cute. You look like a fool. All of these things that people have said over us. We begin to pattern that language. We begin to pattern it. And we begin to talk down on ourselves and self-depreciate because of our own abandonment and our own trauma and our own loss. Oh, and this is another one, y'all, that's big. Some of us will even begin to reenact the abandonment. What do I mean by that? We would begin to attach ourselves to people that we know are not emotionally available. Y'all, this thing touched my spirit. I need y'all to know that this one, when I read this and I started researching this, that thing, oh man, that got me in my spirit. We would begin to attach ourselves to people who we know are not emotionally available to reenact the abandonment that we experienced before. That is going from unhealthy to unhealthy to unhealthy to unhealthy. And then we get mad because the person is not emotionally available. Well, we knew they wasn't emotionally available in the beginning, but we allowed ourselves to attach to those things. And it becomes very problematic in our futures when we're trying to build healthy relationships with people. So then not only have we experienced one initial abandonment, we now have put ourselves in other situations where we have been emotionally abandoned. For a season in my life, I attached myself to people who were emotionally unavailable, and I knew that they were emotionally unavailable. Repeat that again. Okay, I'll repeat it again. Sometimes we would, in an effort of dealing with our abandonment, would reenact the abandonment, which means that if we, let's say, for example, you were abandoned by your mother at a very early age. Somewhere in our lives, if we are reenacting, we may attach ourselves in relationship to someone who is emotionally unavailable, to someone who is physically unavailable, but we attach ourselves to them. That could be a relationship where we know that the person is doing their own thing, but we're like, oh, I love them. They love me so much. We would attach ourselves to unhealthy dynamics and unhealthy relationships in an effort to find love. But what we're really doing we're really hurting ourselves in the end. We're really causing ourselves more pain because we're reenacting the abandonment that we were never healed from. Y'all, this roots deep. This goes deep. That thing touched my spirit. I mean it. How do we do that? We attract ourselves. We attach ourselves to people who are emotionally unavailable. We attach ourselves to people that we know don't really mean us no good. We attach ourselves to people that talk down on us. We attach ourselves to people who refuse to love us the way that we know we deserve to be loved, but we don't know how to find that love because we have not healed ourselves. Whew. Y'all, that's deep. I'm telling y'all, that's tight, but it's right. We do it. I'm guilty. I'm guilty of it. I am guilty of it. I stand in front of y'all right now. I am guilty of it. In my past, when I have been unhealed from my own abandonment, I have allowed myself to be attached to people that I knew that were not good for me. They were not good for me. They could not help me. They could not restore me. They could not fix me. But I attached myself to them and I hurt myself more. I broke my own heart. Some of us are breaking our own hearts, finding love in the wrong places. Now, y'all know I try not to preach to y'all, but that thing is good in my spirit. That thing is good in my spirit. You want to know why? Because we kill ourselves. We self-sabotage every single day of our lives when we're not healed. We self-sabotage. And the Lord is saying that this is the season it's got to go. We can't do that no more. So I'm going to go back to some of y'all's comments, okay? This is the intermission. I want y'all to sit on that for a second. I'm going to go back, okay? Abandonment can cause addictions, absolutely. Young T. Hall, she showed me how to pray and love God. Okay. So, and I asked that question because I asked you what she showed you, because sometimes in order to heal, you have to grasp some of the things that your grandmother taught you. That's a way to stay connected to her. Oh man, grandma taught me how to pray and she taught me how to love God. So I'm going to do this because I know that this is what she would want me to do. And it is a healing space for you, right? And so I thank you for sharing that with me, okay? Teresina says, oh wow, Eleanor, I can't pretend to understand what you must have went through. I still may go through at times with your loss. I'm glad you were able to seek counsel that helped you find an inner peace with your mother's death, especially in knowing that it was out of her control. I'm sure if she had any sign that her life was on the line, she would have found a way out with you. And I'm going to go back to Eleanor's comment. I want to address this as well. I always blame my mother because she allowed an abusive man to kill her at the age of 33. Through counseling, I realized that it was out of her control. I felt abandoned. My God. My God. That's painful, Eleanor. And I appreciate that you found the strength. I'm gonna tap in with Teresina. That's hard. And it's hard because, listen, y'all, we internalize these messages. We internalize these messages. We internalize these messages often. And I appreciate you for going to counseling and for seeking a better answer and for knowing that it was beyond her control. She may not have been able to help herself. We talked about abusive relationships not too long ago. And it's so very painful to experience some of that stuff, y'all. Especially vicariously, meaning that you're not the one that's going through it, but you're the one that's observing it. It's hard. So, Eleanor, I thank you for sharing your testimony. And my heart goes out to you even now, that even you're moving into a healed space. My heart goes out to you. Okay. Okay. So we're moving down. Nikki says, yes, I felt like my father told me, he said I wouldn't be nothing and pregnant by the time I hit 18. By the time I hit 18, I dropped out of school, but never got pregnant. I was nothing for a long time. Wait. I was nothing for a long time. At the age of 21, decided to take control, went back to school, got my high school diploma, certified in business and finance, went to college, graduated with pharmacy tech, and held a good job for 2 years and decided I would not become Tyrone, my father's words. Wow. So you were able to use, and I heard a couple things. One, that you experienced that abandonment, and then you experienced that negative talk, right? And for a minute, you heard it. You dropped out of school and you had, you experienced feeling like nothing. But it was after that that you finally kicked into gear and you allow his negative words to turn into something positive. Say, you know what, I'm not going to be like this. And I'm better than this. And some of us need to shake ourselves up and tell ourselves that we're not going to be like this. No, I am not going to be depressed another day. I am not going to be pain another day. I'm not going to be angry another day. I'm not going to be bitter another day. I'm not going to be frustrated another day at any of these clowns that may be in my life right now. I'm going to move forward and be greater. Why? Because greater is in me. Greater is in me. And the only way you can get to that greater is if you pull out all that junk, right? We want greatness, but we don't want to deal with the hurt. We don't want to deal with the pain. Pull up all of that junk and greatness will be all over you. Y'all, it's a good thing to be free from trauma and all of the things that are going on. Eleanor says, inward discovery, personal recovery, and then affectionate outreach. Until those steps are taken, things cannot be. Absolutely. That's powerful. I might have to steal that. I hope you give me rights to what you just said, because I want to share that. Inward discovery, personal recovery, and then affectionate outreach. Until those steps are taken, things cannot be healthy. That is powerful. That's powerful. Young T. Hall says, I half of my family abandoned me. That's why I stay to myself. Okay. Keep talking. Half of your family abandoned you. That's why you stay to yourself. And it can be hard to internalize that message. You can start to feel like you're nothing. You can start to feel like you're not worthy. You can start to feel insecure, lost, undesirable, promiscuous, lack trusting in others, unworthy, useless, suicidal, addicted to certain things, self-harming. Y'all, we didn't even talk about self-harming. Self-harming, depressed, angry, seeking love desperately, risk-taking things. We can start to feel like that, Young T. Hall, because of the stuff that we are going through. But there is hope. And that's what I want you to know. Before I got on this video, I asked God, and I always pray before I get on this video, because I don't ever want to speak anything that the Lord does not want me to speak, right? But I asked God, I said, God, help us to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Because there's always a light. Sometimes we just choose not to see it. And I want you to know, Young T. Hall, that there is hope for your situation. You are not at the end all be all. This is not what's the final destination for you. Your life may have been crazy from the start to now, but there's still now to say, you know what? I have hope that things can get better. And that could be hard when you're undergoing depression or anxiety or going all through the challenges of just feeling accepted within yourself. That can be hard, but I want to let you know that there's hope. I'm speaking to you today to let you know that there's hope. Holly says, thank you for talking and sharing this. I really needed to hear this today. Amen. 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 Thank you, Dolores, for supporting Young T Hall. Eve Dallas says, time zone threw me off. Okay, that's all right. That's all right. That's all right. We've been having a good conversation. Feel like that all the time. Y'all, listen, this is real. What we're going through, what abandonment is real, right? We think that, because we're not little children no more, that abandonment went away. No, some of the pain from childhood is still living with some of y'all. Some of the pain from childhood is still living with some of us. Why? Because we haven't taken the steps to acknowledge it. And here's the unique thing. When you are a child, you do not know how to cope. You don't know how to cope because that is taught later on in life as you go through certain situations. You learn how to cope with things. But when you're a little kid and there's trauma that happens to you, there's deaths that happen, there's different things that happen to you, it is so hard to tap in to how to cope because you're a child. And so a lot of us take these childhood pains into our adulthood. And we find ourselves jacked up. Attaching ourselves to wrong folks in the wrong company and attaching ourselves to things that we know are not for us because we feel like if something is around us to comfort us, we'll be much better. And at the end of the day, the key is that we need to learn how to validate ourselves. We have to validate ourselves. We have to learn how to validate, look at ourselves in the mirror and say, you know what? I love you today. I know you look bad. I know you feel bad rather, but I want you to know I love you today. And begin to affirm ourselves where we are. You're not alone. Like I said, for those who just joined, the number one truth that you could tell yourself is that you are not alone when you are in your darkest moment. Because feeling alone will lead you to isolation. Feeling alone will lead you into depression. Feeling alone will lead you into suicidality. It will lead you into places that you don't want to be. Eve says, last year I went through a season of believing that hope destroys people. Wow. And that could be very true because a lot of us don't know what hope is. We don't know what hope is. We so accustomed to seeing negative in our lives that we don't even know how to appreciate positive. And this is not an attack or insult, right? This is real. For a long time, because of all of the trauma that I experienced, and somebody said this earlier on one of my posts, they were like, you know what? I recognize I have a loved one that can't even take a compliment. I could not even say thank you to someone who complimented me because I was so accustomed to hearing negative that I couldn't even appreciate it. So hope didn't even exist for me. To me, it was null and void. So definitely recognizing that. Y'all, how y'all feeling right now? This is a heavy conversation. Every conversation we have for real, y'all, is heavy. Anytime that it causes you to go deeper. When I talk to y'all, things come back up for me that I'm like, oh, wait, I ain't healed from that. Let me deal with that. This is a learning experience for all of us. But how y'all feeling out there? I'm going to take a sip of water because I've been talking a lot. Okay, so give me a second. The next question that we asked on the feed today was does abandonment always have to happen in childhood? We basically answered that. And we said no. Abandonment can happen. We talked about adult parents who feel like their children have abandoned them. How can you affirm someone? And this, believe it or not, y'all, no one answered this question today. So I said I have to address this. No one answered it. How can you affirm someone who has experienced abandonment? Before I answer that, I'm going to let that resonate for just a second. There may be somebody who want to answer that. How can you affirm someone who has experienced abandonment? How can you affirm somebody who has experienced abandonment? How can you affirm yourself when you have experienced abandonment? I want you to think about that for a second, okay? Nikki says, right, my father left and started a new family, and my stepfather, who I call my father, was there from a week old to 13 years on the worst abandonment issues. My mom took me out of school for months because I couldn't eat. I threw up everything because the one father I did know in home left, but I did get my closure on him. Okay, so you're finding closure and you're slowly finding healing in different capacities of your life. Thank you so much, Nikki, for sharing your experience. I would love to know how you found closure. If you want to share, how did you find closure? Because I love the fact that you found closure, and even Eleanor, when you went to counseling and you listed some things that need to be done in order to heal. I want to know, like, in your own personal journey, what did you do? Did you just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm not going to let this control me anymore? How did you heal? If you all would like to share that, I would love to share that feedback. So Eve says, in order to affirm someone who has experienced abandonment, I would encourage them to focus more on those who did not abandon them. Oh, that's a good one. I ain't had that wrote down. See, look, y'all teach me every day. It's so very important. Encourage them to focus on their strengths, the area of strengths, the places of strength. Where are you strong? That's why I asked you, young T. Hall, what did your grandmother teach you? Because those are places of strength. Because even though you may still be grieving the loss and you're still not over that loss, there's some things that she taught you that would never allow her to die in your life. And that's the things that we want to encourage you to hold on to. Okay? And you're absolutely right, Eve Dallas. We can encourage them to focus more on those who did not abandon them. Absolutely. Other ways is, it depends on who the person is in our lives. Consistency. Oftentimes, a person who deals with, who struggles with abandonment or fear of abandonment, often doesn't trust anyone. So consistency is so very important. Validation is important. Now, I'm talking about this from talking to someone else who's struggling with abandonment, and also talking to yourself. We have to learn how to validate ourselves. Validation can be real. It can be life-changing. Because if you're not validating yourself, you probably are not receiving validation from anyone else. Reassurance. A lot of us need reassurance, and we can reassure ourselves. Patience with ourselves, recognizing that even though this may have happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 5 years ago, or one day ago, it's still very much so painful. I told you somebody hurt my feelings today. I didn't know what to do. I had to go into the office and say, God, while I wiped my eyes, God, my feelings are hurt. And once I said it out loud, I felt better. Why? Because I just needed to get it out. Samantha says, I keep a gratitude journal, which includes moments of happiness. Absolutely. Oh my God. We're going to do, y'all, I can't wait. Probably in November, we're going to do the 30 days of thanks or whatever. We're going to have a journal. We're going to have a gratitude journal, because it's so very important that we recognize the things that we're grateful for. Pull on to the things that are positive. When you pull on to the things that are positive, you're able to weed out the negative. And that's why I gave y'all that task a couple of weeks ago. For every negative thought that you have, to create 3 positive thoughts, because self-affirmations are so very important. Positive self-affirmations are important. Okay? Dolores said, when I went to counseling, I had to realize it was not my fault. They had their own issues and projected it on me. That is good. Projection is real, y'all. What is projection? Projection is whatever I feel on the inside of me, instead of dealing with it myself, I put it on somebody else to make me feel better. That is called projection. And it happens so often in life because we would project our own garbage onto other people because we're too afraid to deal with it ourselves. And you're absolutely right, Dolores. Half of the stuff that has happened to us have been other people's stuff and other people's projection. And we have become survivors to that stuff. And it's been painful. It's been a painful experience. But the powerful thing is that you're right here on this video able to share your story. Dolores, thank you for reminding me it's okay to voice my feelings. Absolutely. It's okay to voice your feelings. It is important. Nikki, I was acting out. I was blaming my mom. So one day I ran away and told my mom she should have been a better wife to keep my daddy and James, my stepfather, pick me up when I ran away, and we talked, and he said it wasn't my mama's fault nor mine. He was wrong for leaving, and he shouldn't have abandoned me like he did. I was his baby girl, and he was sorry. He hoped that I forgave him. So a beautiful way of closure. And it is also a beautiful way of projection too. That's also a perfect example of projection. For the longest time, Nikki, you was upset with your mom, and you projected that hurt, that pain, and that anger onto her, and you made it her fault. And so then, and I can hear how the closure happened. Your father eventually came to you, or you all talked, and he apologized for what it was he did. He took responsibility for that. And he took responsibility for his action. We have to take responsibility for the stuff that we do. We don't realize how much pain and heartache that we cause on our own selves because of our hurt, because of all of that. So something as simple as having this segment to share is enough for some of us to be able to heal in aspects. Okay? I want you all to know, because we're going to close this out in just a second. I was planning on going on live 30 minutes at a time during Monday through Friday and having an hour segment on, Monday through Thursday and having an hour segment on Friday. But sometimes this stuff is really heavy and we need to address it all. We can't just leave half of the conversation out. I hope that you all have been blessed by this whole entire this segment. I'm going to cover the last couple comments. Eleanor, you typed earlier while I watched. Eleanor, do you mind sharing if you meant that you watched your mother's death? I just admire your strength, and I'm rejoicing with you for overcoming every negative trap that the devil tried to set out for you by use of hurt, of losing your mother. Absolutely. So, Eleanor, if you do care to share, you definitely have the floor. We're going to check out. I like to check out with folks before we go. While I say that I do hope that you all were touched and blessed by something on here, whether it was other people speaking or other people's testimony or something that came out of these notes. I definitely appreciate you all for being on. Keep sharing and keep getting folks onto this page, because folks need to hear this message. This message is real. And I told y'all by the end of May, I want to see at least 30 people on our live, at least 30 people, because this message has to continue to go forth. So if you are out there and you want to share this word, then share this video, get folks out here, let them know that we are talking, we're having these conversations. They're tough conversations, but they're very life-changing. I want to let everybody check out. I want to give Eleanor a chance to answer if she is still on the live. But I want folks to let me know in one word what you're feeling right now. After this segment, just everybody popcorn style, just type one word that you're feeling. If you can type one word, type one. If you can type 10, then that's fine. But one word at least, that what you're feeling right now. And let's just check on out of here, okay? I'll give y'all a second to type it up, okay? For those who are joining, I'm just asking for folks. We're going to check out. We're going to close this video. Jay says, I'm blessed. Young T. Hall, while other people are giving their one word, Young T. Hall says, even though I don't know my dad, I still feel abandoned by him. This is powerful. Keep getting it out. Keep talking about it. Jay, blessed. Young T. Hall, hope. Teresina, enlightened. Nikki, less abandoned. Amazing. Anybody else want to share one word? One word, check out. One word, check out. One word, check out. I am amazed. I am amazed at how every one of these segments just turned into something that I didn't even imagine before we got on. And so I'm definitely blessed and amazed by these segments, okay? So for the most part, everyone has given their one word. Check in. Eve says excited. Eve, you got to go back and check out the beginning or whatever. Get you some popcorn and stuff, okay? Owning my truth, Samantha. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Owning my truth. And I want to say something to that. Oh my God, I don't want to mess your name up. But renewed. I'll say that. If you can type out how I should pronounce your name, I would definitely appreciate that. Dolores says delighted. So definitely grateful for that. Ifiggy, I don't want to say the wrong name, so I tried. But definitely no malintent or disrespect. But definitely when we talk about owning our truth, some of us don't know what that means. Our truth is how we show up, and that can be unashamed. That I show up. Afigi. I hope I got that right. Afigi. If not, I definitely will keep working on it. I have people letting me know how to say their names all the time, just so I can say it correctly. But definitely want you all to know that when we are talking about owning our truth, that means recognizing that who you are in the morning, you are a unique individual. And even though the world may not accept who you are able to live in your truth. Efagi. Okay, did I do it right? Send me a thumbs up. Effigy. Thank you, Nikki. Y'all know I need a little bit of help. I hope I said that. Effigy. Okay. But definitely, when we live in our truth, we're recognizing that who we are, we're beautiful, we're unique, we're talented, we're amazing in our own right, and we are recognizing that we are special. And in the midst of that, we recognize that we are amazing individuals, and we live in that truth. Okay, somebody is flagging me over here and I don't know what they're saying, so y'all forgive me. I'm looking over here like, who is this person? Anyways, I'm gonna close on out, but you all have a great night. Definitely, I got it close. Okay, so definitely inbox me, tell me how to say your name. I definitely want to get it right. Okay, I love you all. Just remember that if nobody else out there loves you,